Finally back. Welcome again to another episode of Underground Genius. I know it's been a little minute, but I'm finally back with episode 15. Thank you to everyone who's listening, watching. Thank you to everyone who's subscribed to YouTube, etc., etc. Please follow all the socials. They'll be linked somewhere wherever you're watching this. So it's fitting, since this is the first episode of 2024, that the focal point of this episode be about my goals specifically. Hopefully mine can help you with yours. So my goal for 2024 was perhaps the most simple, most straightforward, and may even be similar to what you guys' goals are. It's basically to reconnect with the outside world, touch grass, so to speak. And I've noticed that there's been this over-reliance that I had on social media and technology in the first couple months of this year and the last few months of the last year. And it's bad just because of the fact that I take a very passive role on social media. So what I mean by that is, I watch a story here or there, I like a couple posts, maybe send some to my friends, and that's pretty much it. I don't really, outside of that type of engagement, I don't really post myself. And what I've noticed, especially in the last month and a half or so, is that I just spend so much time on social media with very little return on that investment. And there's a couple reasons for this. Of course, our algorithms are designed to keep us engaged by showing us a bunch of things, so content that people that we follow post, content that may be similar to our interests, and stuff that elicits emotion, usually a strong emotion, and usually that emotion is negative more than positive. And that's just because, just the negativity, it permeates through the digital ether a lot more easily than the positive stuff. So, and that negativity, what it does is it keeps you looped in and it keeps you engaged in that system for longer than you may want to be. And outside of, the algorithms, I've also noticed that notifications have just kept me attached to my phone, to my computer, to my tablet, or whatever have you. Every single text message, every DM, every weather alert, every sale notification, all of those things are designed to make us pick up our phone. And before you know it, we spent 40 minutes on our phone that we can't get back just looking at nonsense, for lack of a better phrase. So I was doing some research and I came across this study in 2018 that basically said that the average person picks up their device, they pick up their phone 80 times per day. And they can't go any longer than 4 hours in between picking up their phone. We're 6 years removed from this study, so I'm pretty sure that number has skyrocketed, especially since the onset of the pandemic. I feel like the biggest driver of this is FOMO, fear of missing out. How many times you've taken a shower and as soon as you get out the shower, you rush to your phone only to find that, your phone is dry as shit. But, you rush anyway just because who knows what notification, who knows what text message, what DM you may have missed. You always want to stay in the loop. And there's been countless studies on the link between our social media usage and an unnatural rise in our serotonin and dopamine levels. So if I say that a different way, basically what that means is social media is literally altering our brain chemistry. For me, that's a problem. Like, I can acknowledge that that's a problem. So I decided, I got to change something about that. So with my methodology, and it's not a one size fits all thing. It may be good for you or it may not be good for you, but hear me out. So what I ultimately decided was that my 2024 will be defined by two guiding principles: slow down and be intentional. It's kind of three, and I'll explain how it's three later, but those are pretty much my, those two ideologies or those two principles act as my north star, so to speak. Slow down and be intentional. So we've already identified that my relationship with tech has been a problem. And the way that this really, or how I realized that this was a very big problem that I need to fix was I actually started working from home. So it's basically this job reassignment. So my job is still the same, but I'm just working for a different section of the job. And there are, of course, many benefits of working from home, but for me, it hasn't always been the best thing with all of my previous work from home jobs. I think I talked about it in a prior episode. But to give you kind of context on what my day-to-day is during the week is, I wake up, maybe I go to the gym, most likely I don't, take a shower, and I start my work shift in the late morning. So I clock in and I work for 9 hours. That's 8 hours plus an hour break. And after those 9 hours of staring into a laptop screen, sitting down all day, maybe getting up to stretch a bit, I clock out, and then I just go right over here to my TV. Maybe I play my little P5 or I watch some TV or whatever. Maybe I start reading, and then that's it. That's pretty much my night. You wash, rinse, and repeat 5 days a week, all the way till you get to the weekend. And during the weekend, I do some variation of this. It's actually been winter in New York. Like, it's been snowing, it's been brick in New York for once. So I haven't really been going out as much as I envisioned myself. But that's pretty much my life since the beginning of the year. It's not the healthiest, I'll admit. Of course, I do the grocery shopping whenever necessary. Maybe I go to the store, and I've actually been going to the gym more consistently than last year, at least at the start of last year. So I'm proud of that. But one of the biggest things that I've noticed in the time since I started working from home is that notifications are not my friend. And what I mean by that is I basically, anytime I get a notification, I hang on to it just because that's been my way to kind of interact with the outside world. That's how I get all the information. That's how I stay engaged with everything that's happening outside of these four walls. And in order to better myself, I realized I had to change the way I engage with or interact with or basically use technology. And I also needed to change the technologies that I use, namely the phone and the tablet. Those two things have been the biggest drivers of distractions and unwelcome interruptions to my productivity. So what I did was, instead of using, like screen time or different applications to measure how long I use my phone in a given day, I kind of measure it against daily tasks and daily goals. So like how long was I on my phone compared to how many things did I get done in a day, and how many things did I want to get done or did I need to get done in that day? That's kind of how I've been gauging it. It's not a very scientific method, but it's a very good way to get a starting point. So, and of course, you have to admit that the smartphone is one of the greatest modern day inventions, but it's also the biggest vehicle for unwelcome distractions, as I mentioned earlier. So one other thing that I've noticed too, they always say that smartphones, that you can do anything. They're basically jack of all trades. There's so many things that you can do. You can be a word processor. You can check your emails, social media, communicate with people, watch TV, etc., etc. And while they are a jack of all trades, they're a master of none, save, communication, basically the things that phones were designed to do. Outside of those designed for phone experiences, like calling, texting, and social media apps built for this generation. So I'm talking about TikTok, X, formerly known as Twitter, things like that. Outside of those experiences, although you can do other things on your phone, those experiences are better had on different pieces of technology. So going back to those three principles, even though I mentioned two, slow down and be intentional. The way I break it down as three is I fragment them and then I look at it as the sum of its parts. So 1 is slow down, 2 is be intentional, and 3 is slow down and be intentional. So the way that this manifests is I basically started to examine my place in life, and I realized that I needed to slow down, and it's important to go at my pace, and there's nothing wrong with my pace, because what I was doing was I was judging myself against my contemporaries. And I felt like I wasn't living up to expectations, and I was letting the pressures that don't really exist get to me. And those pressures include, I'm getting up there in age. I still live with my parents. I'm not married yet. I don't have any kids. I got student loan debt and so on and so forth. But then when I really looked at it, I'm still in a very, very fortunate position. So in order to kind of appreciate my place in life, I had to kind of slow down and stop looking outward and judging myself based on the things that I'm lacking, so to speak. So for be intentional, that basically meant that I had to examine all of the areas, all of the things in my life that I can live without and still be my most productive self. Trim the fat, so to speak. And basically, to slow down and be intentional, I basically came across this very, very straightforward concept. Simplify your process. That's the most simple way I can express that. How does everything that I say relate to my relationship with tech and my need or desire to unplug from tech? So simply put, I decided to get rid of my all-in-one devices. So any one device that can double as some or triple or quadruple or how many times over as something else, and reduced it all the way down to my phone. So that meant like for example, a monitor, a computer monitor that also doubled as a smart TV has no place here. Tablet, which is basically an oversized phone / undersized computer, has no place here. I'll get into that in a minute. Pretty much anything that can be used for any device that can be used for multiple things, I got rid of, or I decided against buying it just because for me personally, it's not conducive to a productive environment. So with my phone, obviously you still need a phone in this day and age. Of course, I could go with one of them, one of them little beep beep burner phones, but I don't think I need to go that far. I at some point you gotta exhibit some level of discernment and self-control. That's crucial if you want to kind of better your relationship with technology. So as far as my phone, I am going to focus on the experiences that are the best only on the phone. So that's communication, social media apps, and audio consumption. That's pretty much it. And even in social media, I'm limiting my time spent on social media. So, for example, I only use social media like Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff. I only use that Monday through Friday. So on the weekends, I don't even so much as touch those apps. I don't delete them from my phone, or I don't have like a different view that kind of removes those apps. I just simply don't touch them. And I've disabled notifications from those apps. And what I've noticed just by doing that one thing, just Saturday and Sunday with no Instagram and no Twitter and nothing else of that sort, there's so much time that you get back, or at least me, there's so much time that I got back just by eliminating those two things. Time that I was spending doing so many other things. I'll talk about that in a minute. And like I said, I got rid of my tablet just because of the fact that even though you can do computer-esque tasks, like computer-like tasks, you're still getting bogged down by phone-like distractions and notifications. So I was still getting my text messages, my social media updates, different app updates, things like that. And when it was time for me to do like a computer task, so like let's say write a script for the podcast or write like new video ideas or things like that, I would always get these notifications and that would distract me from my the thing that I was focusing on. So I just got rid of it all entirely. And as far as because like I said, a tablet is the oversized phone. I already have a phone, and an undersized computer. I have so many computers. Like I'm losing count of how many different laptops and desktops that I have. So it just didn't fit in my process, my life process, not even my work process, just my life process. And I repeated doing this. I repeated this process of reduction all the way till I got to just the phone being the device that can double as something else. I mean, you can say the computer, but the computer is made for like multitasking and productivity and blah, 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 blah. But yeah. So, and what I found in doing so is two things. In that process of reduction, I picked up 4 items. I didn't necessarily buy them at the same time, but I started using them. Some of them I started using in tandem to the point that it led me to the second thing, which is I started to touch grass. I started to go outside a lot more in these past few weeks than I have in the past few months, which has been my goal for this year. And these 4 items, they are actually pieces of technology. So it's not like I'm unplugging from tech. In general, I'm more so unplugging from the internet. And I feel like the technology is okay. It's just the internet aspect of it that's kind of creating these distractions, these unwelcome distractions, so to speak. And keep in mind, with these 4 items that I'll get into, the phone can do all of them. The phone can do all of them kind of good, but what I find is when you compare it to these devices, when you juxtapose the experience on the phone to the experience that you get on these 4 devices, the phone experience seems kind of cheapened, lackluster, and even uninspiring. So before I even get to these devices, let me take a little breaky break. We'll be right back. One thing that I noticed, right? Remember I said I take weekends off from social media and I get back a lot of time during the weekend. Another thing that I've noticed as far as like my interaction with social media is whenever I wake up, immediately roll over without even brushing my teeth, without even saying a prayer to whichever God I'm praying to in that particular time, I just pick up my phone and start scrolling. I just start scrolling social media. I noticed that on days that I do that compared to days when I don't, my attention span is a lot worse. Like I'm a lot more prone to distractions. I'm a lot more prone to, if I'm working, I just pick up my phone just for no reason, just because I got a notification, or sometimes just off the strength of nothing. And I just start scrolling and that distracts me from whatever my task is at that moment. However, whenever I start my days without doing so, I feel like I'm less prone to distractions and I'm more productive throughout the day. I don't know if you've ever noticed that or if you've ever experimented with that, but definitely try that. I say that because I'm thinking about this new product that just hit the market. I'm not going to say what it is, but it's very, very popular, one of the most popular things within the tech industry. And it is cooking the shit out of people's attention spans. Like it is like people are frying the attention spans right out of their head, like right out of their brain. It's crazy. Yet it's being widely embraced as all new and emerging technology should. But I feel like this is one of those instances where we really need to pay attention to how we interact, how we use technology before it just completely runs our lives. So with that being said, the first of four items that I've started to use, four tech items that I started to use that help me disengage with the internet or disengage from the internet, help me touch grass more, is actually this right here. I'm trying to figure out the best way to position this on camera. I'll just do some B-roll. It's cool. And if you're listening, what I'm holding up is a tablet called the Remarkable 2. I know. I said I got rid of my tablet. It was like one of those, one of those tablets that has an app store and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. This tablet specifically is different. The Remarkable 2 is different. So before I even get into what it is exactly, I'll give you some background. So I graduated from college with a bachelor's in English with a concentration in creative writing. Like writing used to be my shit. These days, I don't really write it's been some years since I've actually taken a pen to paper, unless I'm, maybe at the bank or at the post office or something like that. But usually it's typing and speaking. Those are my primary forms of communication, as is the case for most of us. What I found, though, historically is that writing, that like the act of physically writing, helps me stay organized, but it also helps me to commit to goals. Like whenever I write something on a piece of paper, like a goal, as opposed to typing it out, it just feels more real. I'm not entirely sure what the psychology is behind that, but that's one of the primary reasons why I got this this Remarkable 2. And pardon me for glancing down. This is where I'm keeping my notes for the episode. But the RM2, as I'm going to refer to it as, is it's an e-ink tablet that has been designed to replicate the experience that you would get with a notebook and a pen. Of course, it does a lot more than that, but in the most simplified terms, that's what it does. As it pertains to sketching, note-taking, journaling, planning, organizing, things like that, this is a phenomenal e-ink tablet that helps you achieve all of those ends. And one thing that happened, I'll be fully transparent, after I purchased this, I actually discovered the world of e-ink tablets and realized that this is not like a unique product. This is not the only one of its kind. And there are other ones that are also, or that are not only cheaper, but also have more features. And that's when I started to second guess my decision, because I'm like, damn, I could have gotten this one. And this one has an app store, for example. I can download apps and I can do more things, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's when I paused. I'm like, that's not the point of this. Like, I got this tablet specifically to help me get back into writing. And since getting this a couple weeks ago, I've been using this every single day. Like, for example, going back to what I said about how I wake up and what I choose to do as soon as I wake up. I try to start my day with a one-pager. So basically I wake up and it's just a stream of consciousness. I just write whatever I'm thinking, whatever I'm feeling, whatever comes to mind, with no real goal except for getting from the top to the bottom of the page. That's it. And one of the things that I found or rediscovered when it comes to journaling is that it helps me process my feelings and my emotions. For whatever reason, I always encounter, time to time, I always encounter mood swings. And I just never understand why my mood has shifted for the better or shifted for the worse. But journaling and just documenting these feelings in this Remarkable 2 tablet has allowed me to kind of like make sense of things, especially if I'm having any like negative emotions and negative feelings. Basically, what happens is if I know the root of those negative feelings, writing it out kind of helps me make peace with it. It's not an immediate solution, but if I just have this bad feeling, that feeling dissipates after I've finished like a journal entry. So that's basically how I've been using this Remarkable 2. And how it specifically helps me reconnect with the outside world is I give myself these like weekly homework assignments where I have to write an entry basically documenting or denoting anything interesting in terms of like visual interest, any conversation I had, anything that I witnessed, but it just has to come from outside of my home. So it has to be somewhere in the outside world. I have to see something, hear something, maybe even say something and write about it. So that's one way I'm kind of like challenging myself to be like, hey, outside of like the necessities, so like the gym and the grocery store, have you gone somewhere else? Have you deviated from your normal day-to-day plan? And have you done something outside? And if you have, talk about it. That's basically how I've been using the RM2. Even though it is a digital device, it's a very analog experience that I get with the RM2. So that's the first piece of tech. The second piece of tech that's helping me reconnect with the outside world is the Analog Pocket. Now, if you're not new to my YouTube channel specifically, you've probably heard me wax poetic about this device numerous times. Like, this has been one of my favorite things I've picked up in definitely in the last 10 years, without a doubt. Simply put, the Analog Pocket is a handheld device that allows you to relive or replay your favorite retro cartridges from old handheld devices and more. So let's say if I want to replay my old Sword of Mana Game Boy Advance cartridge, or my old Pokemon Crystal Game Boy Color cartridge, or even my old NBA Jam Game Gear cartridge, and the list goes on, I'm able to do so with the Analog Pocket. And it's all hardware emulation. And basically what that means is not only am I able to play these games directly off the cartridge, but I'm able to even re-access my old save files from 20 plus years ago. And one of the greatest things about the AP is that it allows me to, like I said, revisit my old physical cartridge library. And why this is good is because going back to my core principles of slowing down and being intentional, sifting through a physical library of games is a lot easier than going through like a digital library, especially given how vast like the PS5 library is. If you have like one of those subscriptions that gives you access to free games and such, like going through physical cartridges makes it easier for me to focus on one or maybe 2 to 3 titles at a time, as opposed to just jumping from game to game to game to game. That's kind of been my experience with gaming now, to the point where it's like I'm trying to figure out something to focus on, all the way to the point where it's just like, all right, I just give up and I just lose interest. And of course, the AP, the Analog Pocket, even though it does allow you to sideload ROMs through the Open FPGA protocol, which is one of its features, and you can just build these vast libraries, like full libraries of different handheld consoles and different retro home consoles. I still primarily play through cartridges because, like I said, that allows me to focus on a few, like just one singular game at a time. Especially if I'm leaving the crib, it's like, all right, well, I have to be intentional with what games I bring with me, because you can only bring but so many cartridges outside your home. Again, like I made a video on this. I made a few videos on this, as a matter of fact. So if you want to hear more about this, I will put some links somewhere. Maybe I'll put a card up there, and then maybe put some video links in the description. So check that out if you want to. So that's the AP. And as we head to the third item that's kind of helped me disengage from the internet, the common theme with all of these items is that after you've set it up, there's no real need for an internet connection to use these items. So the third item that I have is the Kindle, another tablet. First and foremost, shout out to Red for Christmas gift. I definitely appreciate that. And like I said, it's another tablet. And I know what you're thinking. Why get rid of one tablet just to buy two more? Well, think about it like this, right? The Remarkable 2 that I talked about previously is designed for the best writing experience on a digital device. Obviously, that's opinionated, but it's basically the entire UX, UI was designed with just writing, note-taking, sketching in mind, and that's it. And it does it exceptionally well. It's the same case with the Kindle. The Kindle is designed around the experience of reading, and maybe it does some other features, but I just primarily use it just to read, and it does that exceptionally well. Of course, after buying or downloading your ebook of choice, you don't need to have that internet connection. And if you spring for the ad-free version, the only thing that you're going to see is just the content that you've carefully curated, like the books that you've loaded onto this and so on and so forth. The problem with the tablet that I had was after loading it with so many different apps and after utilizing so many different features, I found it hard to kind of like scale back and say, okay, I'm only going to use it for this, and this. I'll be honest, like the temptation of utilizing those other features was strong. So in order to circumvent that temptation, I just removed the entire device and just got other devices that kind of enhance the experience of the task that I was looking to accomplish, if that makes sense. So what I can say about the Kindle is it's definitely helped me get back into reading. One thing, though, is I still also read paperback as well. So what I try to do is for every 2 books that I read on my Kindle, I try to read one physical book just to kind of stay in between both worlds. So right now, for example, I'm reading 12 Notes on Creativity by Quincy Jones, and it's a very, very devastating open, but it's a fascinating and enjoyable read so far. And that's it for the Kindle. And the last piece of technology, I'm actually going to hold it in this main shot. The last piece of technology that has helped me re-engage with the outside world is this little guy right here, the Fujifilm X100V. And this has been the camera that has allowed me to rediscover my love and passion for photography. I started my journey in photography like 11 years ago at this point. It's been a little minute, 2013-ish. And at some point, I kind of stopped with taking photos and I started to focus more so on the video side. But this camera has allowed me to be my most creative self. And I probably got some of my best pictures using this camera in the short time that I've had it. Why this camera is so special to me is because it has a fixed lens. So it's a fixed focal length, which is a 35 millimeter full frame equivalent. And to put that in perspective, like the cameras that I'm shooting on, so this camera and that camera right there, the cameras that I'm shooting on, my Sony cameras, I have 12 different lenses for them. So obviously I had to, in setting up, like to record this episode, I had to determine which lens to use. Why am I using this lens? And I had to experiment with the different lenses that I have. Since this is a controlled environment, once I got my selection, I don't need to think about that choice too frequently. But once I step outdoors, once I use these cameras outside, there's so many different shooting scenarios and there's so many different lenses for different purposes that I could use. There's so many things to think about. Whereas with the Fujifilm X100V, since it has the singular lens, it's basically forced me into focusing only on the shots that I can take and ignore all others that I can't. So that means that there's no telephoto feature. I can't zoom in all the way, maybe 3 blocks away to take a picture of a car or whatever it is. It's just, I'm not even thinking about those things anymore. I'm just thinking about how can I get the best shot with this specific camera. And the sensor on the camera is amazing, and of course the what are those things called? The film simulations that have made this camera to be as popular as it is on social media. They're bar none. They're very, very impressive. There's a lot of things that you can do creatively with this camera that I wasn't necessarily thinking about using my old Sony camera or my old Canon cameras. Those were decisions that I would have to make in post. And with this, I committed to never, no editing any of the photos. So basically, whatever I get out of the camera, that's basically what I'm committing to. Of course, you don't have to follow that workflow, but for me, it's making me think about every single shot, the light, the lighting conditions, the angles, how close or far away I am from the subject itself, all of these things. So I definitely credit this camera with a lot. And unfortunately, I had to pay resale price for this, but in my opinion, I think it was worth every penny. That's just me, though. And that's all I have for today's episode. Once again, I appreciate the love. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you would be so kind as to hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening to this, and also follow me on socials. So on IG, that's where I'm usually most active. It's Kyle VBS, so Kyle VBS. And once again, I appreciate it. This has been Underground Genius. Peace.